What is up, everybody? It has been a while, and I've got some thoughts on these ownership meetings. The question is the message that was sent. It was pretty clear to me, but was it intentional? All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's been a while. I've been on vacation for nearly 2 weeks. I missed everybody. Let's see who's in the chat already. This is very, very late notice. I just created the show, so I don't expect many people in here yet, but it is great to be back for sure. I see Madge in here. What's up, brother? I see brother Bob in here. You know what, brother Bob? This close, this close to banning you. I've never banned any of my moderators or channel members. You are both this close. Just remember that, this close. What's good, James? How are you? What's up, Harris? How you doing, man? You're the GOAT. You're the GOAT, and it is the return of you. I appreciate it. It's like return of the Mac. All right, y'all. Listen, I hope you've had a fantastic previous 10 days. It's been an awesome couple days for me, or 10 days or so for me. I was in Bora Bora, for those of you that don't know, and I completely unplugged outside of like a post. I uploaded a video while I was in the airport. It was in the middle of a 24-hour travel day. It was atrocious, but it was completely worth it. And I noticed, oh, dude, I'll tell you this, Gojira Von Jinx, Bora Bora. I've been to a lot of beautiful places. Very, very blessed. I've been to Puerto Vallarta. I've been to Cabo. I've been to Cancun. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to the Dominican Republic. I've been to Costa Rica, and now Bora Bora. And I will say, if you are going to go on a vacation for relaxation purposes and because you just want beautiful scenery, Bora Bora, hands down, not even close. Now it's way more expensive than all those places, so you get what you pay for. But Bora Bora was the most beautiful place that I have ever been, and it wasn't particularly close. And that is nothing bad on any of those other places. They're all fantastic vacation places. I've enjoyed each and every one of them, created great memories in each and every one of them with my wife, my kids, my family. But Bora Bora is, dude, it is next level. Absolutely next level. So take one, Catherine. Take one. Don't wait. Life's way too short. Jason says you missed so much Niners news. They signed wait, they've done more nothing. Yeah, absolutely. I spent my time on the way back catching up on the owners meetings. So that's really all I have to talk about. I took some notes, and I did drop a brief video. So I think most of you probably, if you've seen that, know where I'm going with it. But there was a clear message that was sent. We'll get to that here in a minute. What's up, Nick? How are you? Dave says, what's up, Dave? My guy, what's up? Good to see you. Great to see you too. It's great to be back. What's interesting is awesome as vacation is, there is a point where you are excited to be back and just get back into life. And that's where I'm at. I'm very happy to be back home, relaxing. Took another day off of work just to kind of get my bearings about me. I don't know if you guys know, but the time zone of Bora Bora is way off. It's 6 hours behind East Coast time, which is where I'm at. And for those of you on Pacific time, 3 hours behind that, it's absolutely insane. So that 6 hour time zone, the 24-hour travel, I got to be honest, I'm still reeling a little bit, but definitely needed to get back on the horse. So here we are. All right. let's get into it real quick. What's up, Jason? What's Emiliano, Dusty, James? I see all of you. Appreciate you very, very much. Okay, let's get into it. Took some notes on the owners' meetings, what was said. I don't have anything on John Lynch and what he said because it doesn't seem, at least that I was able to find. I mean, people are recounting what was said. A couple people put out a few quotes of what he said, but I don't have what he said in its entirety. And because there's no audio and there's no video, I don't want to take something out of context. I think sometimes reading something can come across completely different than when you watch it. So for me, I left him completely out of it. We did hear from him at the combine. I don't think a lot's changed except for really the message that he's more optimistic, seemingly more optimistic about the Brock Purdy deal getting done and possibly soon. But he's acting as if they're ahead of schedule on this thing, which they are when you look at other quarterbacks and when they have signed, but acting as if they're like just striking while the iron is hot and oh, they're going to be super early on it. Not really. I mean, they technically could have signed Brock Purdy. We're 3 months into the process. So if you really wanted to be early and you really had optimism, to me, it easily could be done by now. Other organizations, good organizations, the 49ers are a good organization. They're led well. I mean, listen, we can talk all we want about Kyle Shanahan as a coach, and definitely I'm critical of him or Jed York as an owner or John Lynch. And I think sometimes when I speak about those guys, because I'm critical a lot of times by nature, it comes across like I just don't think that they do a good job or I could do their job better. People, misconstrue that stuff all the time. But ultimately, they are a well-ran organization. And so when I look at the well-ran organizations and how they took care of their quarterback contract outside of the Green Bay Packers, they've all signed them very, very early. All of those quarterbacks got their deal before this stage into the offseason. And all the bad organizations that haven't done well and maybe made some mistakes in who they signed, they did it much later into the offseason. And that's where the 49ers are trending, which is not out of the ordinary for them. So the 49ers, not early. And John Lynch, that's really the only thing that I took out of what was posted. And like I said, I don't want to take anything out of context. So that being said, I do have notes from what Kyle talked about, and I have notes from what Jed York talked about. And I think there's a clear message that was sent to Brock Purdy or to the fans about Brock Purdy. And I don't know that it was intentional. They were honest, they were open, but I feel like personally they put a lot of pressure on Brock above and beyond what the contract is already going to do. And I don't know that it was necessary. And I don't know that it was intentional, but to me, it was clear and it was there. It was very obvious. And so we're going to go through what was said. I think it was more obvious with Jed York and what he said. But first, we will start with Kyle Shanahan. All right, Kyle Shanahan, when they asked him about cutting costs, he basically said, hey, we anticipated retooling. This is not out of left field. We're on the same page here. Doesn't mean it's fun. He doesn't enjoy the process, but this is not something that caught him off guard. I think a lot of people are like, oh, Jed really laying down the hammer, not letting him spend. And maybe that's the case, but the way that Kyle talks about it, the way that Jed talks about it, the way that John Lynch talked about it at the combine, it's clear that they are all lockstep, at least in the message. And I think that's a positive thing. He did talk about signing Luke Farrell and what that meant and why they did it. It's very obvious the 49ers have been looking for a second tight end that they can have on the roster long term, potentially, that is a blocking type tight end. This is something that is important to Kyle Shanahan. And they didn't have it last year. They've had it a little bit throughout the course of the tenure of Kyle Shanahan, but it's clear that it's important to him. He talked about how it helps balance out the line when they're running either left or right. And also, and this should be music to your ears, how it frees up George Kittle to go out on routes because he can stay in and block. Now, I still think it's a little bit weird that Kyle Juszczyk is still here. I get it, different positions, all of that. But to me, you don't need both. It's one or the other. Do you want a fullback or do you want a second tight end who's primarily a blocker? I just I feel like the NFL has evolved way past both of those needing to be on the field. I mean, this is a more of a passing league than ever. You can run the ball without both on the field. I think when you put both on the field, it's pretty obvious that you're most likely going to run. Now, obviously, you can run play action out of this once you've established the run. But I just, to me, the usage rate of Kyle Juszczyk and the usage rate of this second tight end, especially when it comes to the passing game, it doesn't make sense to have them both on the field. But I digress. It's important to Kyle. It's not like it was a big deal. We're talking a few $1,000,000, not the end of the world. But the standalone signing of Farrell makes sense. He also talked about Kyle Juszczyk. This was a Grant question. I think it was a good question. It was an important question. He was asked about cutting Juszczyk and bringing him back and why he did that. He basically said it was financial reasons or financial things. I don't understand that. He talked about how much money they saved by doing it. You didn't save any more money than you could have by restructuring. You certainly didn't help financial things when it came to the salary cap and what actually hits the salary cap and the way that it hits the salary cap. So to me, the whole thing is still very strange, but here we are. He's back. We know that. Not going to beat a dead horse on it. All right. He talked about creativity in the offense. He was asked basically, what does he do every offseason to get better and be more creative around drafting players? And he said, creativity comes from building around the players and not just drawing up plays, meaning he isn't just thinking of crazy plays that he can run because I want to run crazy plays. He's looking at the skill set of the players involved and using that to game plan and draw plays around the player due to their specific skill set. I think he's done a great job of that for the most part. Obviously, we know Deebo Samuel. I mean, talk about a specific skill set. Did a great job building an offense around Deebo Samuel, and it worked for a while. He's not the best, though, about maybe switching off that game plan, and he's not the best about doing that for all players. I'll give you a couple of examples. Jawan Jennings in the game against the Cleveland Browns 2 seasons ago when Deebo Samuel got hurt in the first half very, very early, and they opened up the second half with a run to Jawan Jennings, who was in the backfield. Very strange. That didn't make any sense. And I look at a player like Jacob Cowing. He's got a specific skill set. And the 49ers did not do a good job of using that skill set, in my opinion, this last year. I think that's a player. Obviously, when they draft new players, he's going to have to do it again. But that's one player that I look at specifically and say, Jacob Cowing, that is a player that is special in certain areas, but he's not a do-it-all player. You have to manufacture touches, and you have to use his skill set specifically in a certain way. That's a player that I'm looking to Kyle Shanahan and saying, this year, Kyle, if you truly are doing those things, I want to see Jacob Cowing used in a very specific way that you believe can help this offense. So I think that's an area of opportunity for him. He was asked about Payne, the quarterback. He says, it's what brings change to this offseason. and he is certain that Brock is the guy. So basically, he said that's why. That's why we are doing things differently. That's why we aren't going crazy in free agency. That's why we didn't sign Dre Greenlaw and we didn't sign Hufanga, and we were unable to do things the way that we had in the past because we have this contract looming. This is the first sign of between Kyle Shanahan and Jed York laying the groundwork for what I believe was unnecessary. Again, I don't know if it was intentional, unintentional, what have you, but definitely has put unnecessary pressure on Brock Purdy. And this trend will continue throughout the course of these talking points, especially when it gets to Jed York. But that's the way that he took it is, hey, listen, we couldn't sign these guys for those reasons. And this is what I talked about. This was the worry with Dre Greenlaw very early in this offseason. And I had a message for everybody that was wanting to re-sign him because it was pretty clear to me that there was going to be teams that were interested in Dre Greenlaw. The 49ers were going to have competition for his services. So when I looked at it, I said, you shouldn't be up in arms about losing Dre Greenlaw or upset about losing him if you also believe that signing Brock Purdy to a long-term big-time deal is the right move. If that's something you want, that's fine. I'm not here to dispute that portion of it. That's all personal preference and opinion. But with that comes losing players who you think are important to this roster. This shouldn't be surprising. You can't keep everybody. And when you're paying big time players like a Nick Bosa, dang near quarterback money, and then you start to pay a quarterback, actual legit quarterback money, these are the things that are going to happen. And he basically reiterated that, saying, hey, this is the reason why. It's just what it is. He was asked about Jake Brendel. And this was one of the most confusing comments, I would say, that he had. He had two of them. But this one, he says, I think Jake played well. He was asked about, is there going to be competition for Jake? It's like, no, why would there be competition for Jake? This is a crazy question that you're asking me, basically. He said in pass protection, he's up there with the best in the league. Listen, I don't know how much Jake Brendel watching you do, but that guy ends up on his butt almost every game. He gets blown up badly almost every game, a lot of times, multiple times a game. I don't take PFF as gospel, but I think they know a little bit about what they're talking about. In pass protection alone, remember, there's 32 starting centers in the NFL. There were 64 that qualified, played enough snaps to get a PFF grade, and Jake Brendel ranked 54 out of 64. For those of you taking note at home, that's way worse than starting level center caliber. That's not even the worst starting level center caliber. That is almost double the worst starting level center caliber. So not great. Not great. Again, I don't take PFF as gospel, but I do think what they grade him at does show up when you watch Jake Brendel and you watch the film. So I tend to agree with them here. I don't know what Kyle sees in him, whatever. But what I took out of that is I wouldn't expect the 49ers to draft a center high. Doesn't seem like they're interested in having competition there. So for those of you that have been pounding the table for getting better on the offensive line, that was one of the big things that I think a lot of people talk about. And it doesn't look like that's going to change, at least this upcoming season, but we will see. He was also asked about the left guard competition. He said that that'll be competed between Nick Zakel, Ben Barch, Hennessy and Burford. He said, "We went into the last few drafts not needing to find starters other than a kicker." Now, this was in reference to the question about the left guard competition, but really, he started talking about competition at left guard and then parlayed that into, hey, we have a lot of positions that will be open for competition, especially on the defense. Throughout the draft, we need a lot of starters, especially on the defense. There's going to be a lot of competition for starting positions. There hasn't been that competition the last few drafts, not referencing last year, but the years prior, the 2, 3 years prior. We didn't need to bring starting players onto this roster because we felt like we had starters across the board. The only thing that we needed essentially was a kicker. I think on the surface, this is also perplexing in what he's saying. We get it. You felt great about all your starters. But does that mean that you were drafting specific needs, off the wall needs instead of the best player? I think when you look at some of those drafts, you can argue that they took best player available in some situations, but you can also argue that taking a kicker in round 3 is crazy. Also, taking a 5th round prospect tight end who did nothing for this team in Cam Latu, who presumably fit a specific skill set you were looking for in a second tight end in round 3, also is an overdraft. So that kind of does go along with you weren't looking for starters or needing starters. You were just looking for odds and ends pieces at times. Maybe that's why they drafted really well last year, not so well the years prior. I get it. They didn't have the first round picks and second round picks in some of those scenarios, but still, I think a lot of those head scratching picks you can now look at and say, well, they didn't even care to have a starter. They just wanted some backup guys and some odds and ends pieces. So they were searching for those things. I don't know. I think it was a weird comment. I don't know if that's what he meant, but that's the way that it came across. Now, this was a good comment. He was asked about Jake Moody. Will they bring in competition for him? And he didn't hesitate. Yeah, we're going to bring in competition. That's something that was talked about at the end of the season in the presser, that they would likely look for somebody, but we weren't sure. And he said 100% for sure they will bring in hopefully a veteran to compete with Jake Moody. They will do so after the draft. I do think it's possible that the competition they bring in is an undrafted free agent. That's fine. Kickers, most kickers in the league are undrafted free agents. Most kickers aren't drafted in round 3. In fact, I think Jake Moody's the only one. So you can find really, really good kickers that are undrafted. So maybe they bring in one of those guys. Maybe they bring in a veteran. It sounds like he would prefer to bring in a veteran. He was also asked about how do you have a competition in practice? Because when you look at Jake Moody, he kicks well in practice, but not so well in games. How do you turn this into a competition and apply pressure to Jake Moody? Kyle Shanahan, I think, had a really good answer to that, which is no, you can't simulate games in practice. Certainly, you can have preseason games where there's not a lot on the line, but bringing in somebody who is looking to take your job, a team or your team, this organization is looking to potentially replace you, and you know that, that in itself applies a lot of pressure. So watching somebody who you're competing with kick, play in and play out, take some of your kicks in preseason games, that in itself applies pressure. And I think he's right. I think it's a great answer. I think it's the right answer. And I think it's awesome and commendable that they are going to do that. I don't know that cutting Jake Moody without a competition, especially if they do believe that the injury played a big part. It sounds like they do, played a big part and why he struggled down the stretch. I don't know if I agree with that, but let's find out. Let's find out. So I like the approach that they are taking. He was also asked about the defensive line. What's happened the last few years? You guys were great. Why? What's going on? And he said, we had the best defensive line in football, one of the best defensive lines in NFL history in 2019. It's hard to duplicate that, but he did reiterate that he and John believe that good teams start with a great D line. So if you're putting two and two together, it doesn't look like the offensive line is necessarily a priority in the draft. Doesn't mean they're not going to draft anybody. That's not what I'm saying, but doesn't seem to be the number one priority if they feel like they have multiple left guards in house that can compete there. And they feel like they have their starting center who doesn't need to compete with anybody. Offensive line isn't near as much of a priority as the defensive line, not only from an obvious standpoint that they need three starters on the defensive line potentially and some depth pieces, but also Kyle Shanahan basically saying, hey, we believe that great teams start with a great D line. So I think that it seems clear that they're looking to go potentially defensive line with pick 11. It doesn't mean that if a Will Johnson falls, they don't go there, or Mimbu or something like that, but I think it looks like they're primed and ready to go D line at 11. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's kind of the way that I took that. And then last but not least, he was asked about his expectations. Are they lower than normal? And he said, no, they're not. They're not lower. But he also said that he felt reinvigorated, more so than he had in a long time. He talked about setting expectations for new incoming players and how there's a lot of turnover on rosters year to year. But this year specifically, there's going to be a lot of rookies that he hopes that are going to contribute. So there is a standard that he expects from this team. Getting that message clearly across to the new incoming players is very important. And for him, he's in the past, it sounds like he looked at the season, he looked at the roster and said, this team is a Super Bowl team. We expect that. Now he's not saying that, but he's also not waving the white flag. He's basically looking at it and saying, this is a young team. This is a new team. There's going to be a lot of new faces here on the coaching staff. And from a player standpoint, we think we can do great things, but it's going to take a heavy focus week in and week out. And we really have to build on the process 1 week at a time to get better, is what he said. So I like that. I love that message. And I love that he's reinvigorated. I love that he has expectations, that he feels like this is the way we do things. Let's make sure that we roll that out to all the new faces. And let's take it 1 week at a time. Let's stack weeks. We win week one. He talked about week one. Hey, we feel like if we do the right things this offseason, we'll be competitive to win in week one. And once you win that week, it's about winning in week two, and so forth and so on. You stack enough wins, all of a sudden you're in the playoffs. Confidence can change. Anything can happen. I like it. I like it. That was, to me, one of the most well thought answers from Kyle Shanahan that I've ever heard. I loved it. I think it was a great answer. It got me kind of excited. I'm not gonna lie. I'm reinvigorated. So good job on Kyle. I think he carried himself very well at the owners' meetings. Did his normal ums and what have you, but I think overall he carried himself well. I heard Grant say that he had offered him a shot. He didn't take it and he wasn't drinking that night. I think that's awesome too. One of the things that we've seen from Kyle is that he's not immune to having good times and having a pop or two, even if it means Super Bowl week when you're in front of the world. So the fact that he refrained from that, took this very seriously. I felt like he looked rejuvenated. He did look like he was reinvigorated, and I'm excited for it. I think he carried himself very, very well. Very well. Frank Tom Ocean says, 2 years, bro. I appreciate you. No, Frank Tom Ocean, I appreciate you. 2 years is a long time, brother. Thank you so much. Dave says, Jess, I broke 1,000 subs yesterday. Effing crazy. I'll tell you what, I love the channel and I love building the channel. I love that there's a base that really rocks with me. But there is something about building a channel from scratch and going after that first 1,000 subs. It used to be you had to have 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 subscribers in order to have monetization open up on YouTube. I think they've changed it a little bit, but there is like levels or tiers to getting monetization, and it's still 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours. I think the 4,000 watch hours is a son of a gun when you're first starting out, but I will say there's an excitement to every subscriber up until 1,000. And when you reach it, there's a lot of excitement around that. So I know exactly what you're feeling. Congratulations, brother. I think it's awesome. And like I said, I think that tutorials and building things, that's evergreen content. I think it's great. And he says, it appears that our O-line has never been a priority to Kyle and John. Yeah, it can appear that way. I would say it can appear. So there we go. What's up, Joe? Joe says 9 years. We know how it's going to play out. We're coming up short. All right, got you, got you, got you. Let's see. Oh, Brendel gets 60 million. G's. Yeah, why not? Why not, man? Why not? This is something that Jed York talked about as well. We're gonna get into his statements, but he did talk about this. Jared said Grant said Dr. York was there, probably why Kyle was sober. Interesting. I did not know that. Did not know that. You know what though? I almost wonder if he's there every year because technically he's also an owner of the 49ers, majority owner. I don't know. I don't know how all that works. Obviously, we know Jed is the face, but you almost wonder if he has to be there for the owners' meetings. And he doesn't ever talk to the media, but he has to show up to the meetings to discuss rule changes and everything else that comes with those. So I almost wonder if he's just there every year and nobody's heard about it. I don't know. Just me thinking out loud. Not quite sure. What do I think of Kyle McCord? I watched Kyle McCord a couple weeks ago and said immediately, this is Kirk Cousins right here. Kyle Shanahan would love Kyle McCord. He reminds me so much of Kirk Cousins. It's absolutely crazy. Kirk Cousins was what, a third or fourth round pick. And Kyle McCord will probably end up being like a fourth or a fifth himself. And if he ends up in a Kyle Shanahan offense somewhere, he may really thrive in that. Really thrive. He's not exciting from a standpoint. He's obviously not super mobile or anything like that, but he really truly is Kirk Cousins. Like this is a young Kirk Cousins. Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother Bob says, let me unsubscribe. So he has 9. That's messed up, man. Why would you do that to him? That's funny. The question is can moderators ban other moderators? Brother Bob, I mean, I don't know if this is the route you want to take. You know what I mean? What's up, Big Heck? All right. Draft McCord and don't sign Brock. I don't know. I'm fine with both of those things, but I don't. think they go hand in hand. Like, you don't have to sign McCord to not sign Brock. But yeah, I'm fine with both those things. I think McCord would crush it in this offense. Frank Tom Motion says, shout out to all the comment creators. Shout out to you guys. I can't wait till the season starts and Matt's around again. I miss him. All right, let's get into Jed York. And this is where the message was super, super clear. First off, he was asked about cutting costs. We're going to bring this up multiple times because he was asked about this in a myriad of different ways. But he was asked about cutting costs. The first thing he says out of his mouth, which is super weird, especially because I remember him talking about Eddie DeBartolo last year during the owners' meetings. And sure enough, I went and watched that interview. He absolutely brought up Eddie DeBartolo, and he brought him up in that interview a year ago when talking about the salary cap as well. So it's very clear to me that Jed York has a jealousy, something with Eddie DeBartolo, or at the very, very least is insecure enough to bring up Eddie DeBartolo. And in this case, wasn't even mentioned. Nobody brought up Eddie DeBartolo, but he's insecure enough that he feels like he needs to bring him up and make sure that everybody knows the reason we're not winning Super Bowls around here is because Eddie DeBartolo, we don't have the luxury that he had without the salary cap. And in this case, he talked about Eddie DeBartolo and said, well, you can blame him for what we're doing this offseason. That was the first thing he said. It's his fault the way that he used to spend money. That's why there's a salary cap. Like, all right, dude, I guess. So we'll blame it. So blame Eddie DeBartolo. If you feel like the 49ers aren't doing the thing that they should be doing, or they're being cheap or cutting costs, blame Eddie DeBartolo. Weird thing to say. I don't understand it. But again, he talked about him last year at the owners' meetings as well. This is not new. He does this. That being said, he also pushed back on the verbiage of cutting costs. He said it's because of paying the quarterback position. They have to make the adjustments. This is the theme of most of his interview. He was also asked specifically about cutting costs because of bad contracts. He was asked, hey, have these previous perceived bad contracts, whether it's Javon Hargrave, Brandon Ayuk, what have you, are these the reasons why you guys are skimping a little bit? And he said, no. We just need to get younger and healthier. And we are paying a top 10 quarterback, and that changes things. So I obviously agree. I've said all offseason that I agree with what they are doing for the most part. Again, some of the moves by themselves don't make a lot of sense, but the overall assessment of retooling this year, I felt like they should have done it last offseason. I talked about it last offseason. I then talked about it at the trade deadline, how they had the opportunity to get out in front of this thing. That's not what they did, but they are doing it now. So I'm happy with the route that they are taking. But what I'm looking at here is, again, for the second time, he brings up the reason this is happening is because we are paying our quarterback. Okay. The follow-up question to what he said was Brock being top 10. He said, is Brock top 10? Or somebody asked him, is Brock top 10? Is that what you think? And he goes, yeah, I'll give you the full quote, actually. The other stuff I'm kind of paraphrasing. This is a direct quote. He said, I think he is. I think he's great, especially when you combine him with Kyle and what we have. He's a heck of a quarterback, and we want him here for a long, long time. All right, I'm going to combine his answer with, I saw a clip today from I think it's the facility on Fox. It has what's his name? I almost said Jaden Daniels. He was a backup quarterback in the league. Something Daniels. Anyways, him, Shady McCoy, and a few other guys. Acho, whatever. Chase Daniels, I think is his name. Anyways, they were talking about, okay, Joe confirms, Chase Daniels. All right. They were talking about, is Brock Purdy a top 10 quarterback? Chase says, yeah, he is a top 10 quarterback, but then proceeded to say, well, I don't really rank quarterbacks 1 through 10, but I've got tiers, and then showed 12 quarterbacks in his top 2 tiers, one of them being Brock Purdy. And then, so when I look at that, and when I look at what Jed York said, and I hear how people talk about Brock Purdy, and I've talked about this in the past a lot, how it's really annoying and frustrating that when direct questions are asked to people that love Brock Purdy and can't stop talking about how great he is and how elite he is and how he's so special and he deserves all the money in the world and pay him whatever and he's the franchise and all of that. People that just seemingly can't stop praising Brock Purdy for how amazing he is. When you ask them direct questions like, is he top 10? Is he elite? Name who the quarterbacks to you that are elite. Always people dance around it. Always. Direct question. Is he top 10? Answer was, I think he is. I think he's great. Especially when you combine him with Kyle and what we have. He's a heck of a quarterback and we want him here for a long, long time. Simple. Is he or is he not? Why do you have to throw in when you combine him with Kyle and what we have? So is it Kyle and what we have, or is Brock by himself top 10? Chase, when you are asked about Brock Purdy, and is he top 10? Don't give me a tier list of 12 quarterbacks and say he's top 10. And then put him in a tier with 8 quarterbacks and say, well, he's top 12, but I mean, what's the difference? Is he or is he not? Very direct questions, and people can never provide direct answers. And then when you watch the rest of what that clip was on the facility, you got Shady there going, okay, before the rest of us go now that Chase Daniels has laid out his criteria and not answered the question very straightforward, in a straightforward fashion, can we all agree that we are going to be honest when we talk about Brock Purdy? I thought it was just a 49er content creation thing because there's a lot of pressure applied within the fan base to just glaze Brock Purdy. And if you don't, you're somehow not a real fan of the 49ers and whatever. People get super upset if you just don't crown him as the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's very weird. Anyways, I thought it was just a 49er content creation thing. Clearly, the pressure that y'all apply, or some of y'all, not everybody, but some of y'all apply when it comes to the topic of Brock Purdy has reached outside of 49ers content creation, because you've got actual ex-professional athletes on Fox Sports giving caveats to their answers and saying, guys, can we all agree to be honest? Scouts honor over here and not go back on what why can't we just talk about him honestly without having to have these caveats and walk things back? And well, he is, but also I got to appease the fan base. So I'm going to tiptoe around it. And even though I don't really believe he is these things, I'm going to throw in within the system or with Kyle Shanahan, or he's played like that. I don't do hypotheticals about starting teams. And listen, is he or is he not? Simple. What do you think about Brock Purdy? This is a very simple conversation to have. For some reason, people just tiptoe around it, including the owner of the 49ers, but whatever. He thinks he's top 10, especially with Kyle and everybody else around him. Great, Jed. Thanks for doing what everybody does. You're the owner of the team. Can you give a clear, concise answer and just say, yes, I believe he's top 10. That's why we're going to pay him. We feel like we found our guy. He's absolutely amazing. He's only going to get better. He's only 25 years old. We think he's elite, whatever. But throwing in the caveat of, oh, but with Kyle, just stop. Answer the question. Is he or is he not? And even Jed, the owner of the team, cannot do it without appeasing a certain part of the fan base. It's super strange. I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely crazy. All right. He was then asked directly, is he being cheap? To which he laughed and said, well, I've been called worse. But he said, just because you aren't active in free agency does not mean you aren't trying to win. And again, every question is ended pretty much this way. They have to pay Brock. You see a theme here? You see a theme? Everything, again, I don't even think it's on purpose. I really don't. I think they like Brock. I don't think they're trying to put the burden on Brock at all. But every single time you're asked about why the offseason is going the way that it is, you immediately say, oh, we got to pay the quarterback. We got to pay Brock. Not just you, but that's what Kyle is saying. At least when John talked about it a couple weeks ago at the Combine, he just talked about cash spending and changing things around. And he had a completely different answer as to why it was happening. He didn't say, well, it's all, we got to pay a quarterback and that's why. But these guys are basically giving you all the ammo you need to say, oh, Brock's fault. We couldn't sign this player because of, whether that's true or not. I don't know that that's the message that you want to put out there. There's already going to be, if Brock Purdy gets the money that most people expect him to get, myself included, if that is going to happen, you're putting unnecessary pressure on Brock Purdy. Unnecessary pressure. It's already going to be there. The moment he starts making big time money, if he has a bad throw or a bad game, not if, when he has, because everybody has bad throws and bad games, this fan base will go crazy. Even those that support him. It's all of a sudden, it changes the game when your quarterback is making elite quarterback money. And if he's not producing like an elite quarterback at any point, people will be pissed. So you, at the end of every answer, blaming this offseason on Eddie DeBartolo, which was weird to start, but then ending everything with, well, we got to pay Brock. Listen, this is because Brock. Wait, what do we get? Super strange. Super strange. Completely unnecessary. He was also asked about the team's life cycle, or he was talking about the team's life cycle. I forget the exact question, but he was talking about the life cycle of a team and how the team at one point was competing for a Super Bowl. They've aged. That team can no longer compete. They had a lot of injuries, what have you. And the life cycle of that roster is now sunset. And we are looking towards rebuilding this thing through the draft. But this is interesting to me. He said, John and Kyle are the best GM and head coach combo in the league. And they have a lot of really good players still on this roster. They can't get free agents because they have to pay their quarterback. Once again, he ended with that. But let's take the first part of this. He said, John and Kyle are the best GM and head coach combo. I'm not going to debate that. That's all personal preference, whatever. But he also said they still have a lot of really good players. You know what that says to me? That says to me Hey, I don't care that you had a losing season last year. I don't care if you feel like we stripped away some of your best players and took away some of the depth and aren't spending as much cash as we have in the past. My expectation, if you are the best and we still have talent on this roster, we better find a way to win regardless. That's the way that I took that. And I think that's the way that he feels. If he feels like they are the best and he feels like there's still good talent on this team, then that puts pressure on the GM and the head coach. That puts pressure on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to have a solid season regardless. Their mulligan was last year when he spent all the money. He's not going to give them another mulligan. I'm not saying he's going to fire them. That's not what I'm saying. But he's certainly not going to be lackadaisical if they have a repeat of last season. And he did mention at some point during this interview also, he felt like they were a better team than 6-11 last year. So you combine that with this comment, his expectations are pretty high for that tandem to get it done regardless. Not saying win a Super Bowl, but they can't afford to not make the playoffs again. I don't think that's going to be acceptable. And we'll see what the consequences are. But to me, it's clear, not acceptable. Once again, he also ended that with, hey, we're not getting free agents because we're paying our quarterback. He was asked about holdouts in the past. Why and what's going on with that? Is that something he's going to expect going forward? He said, here's a quote, "You can't make somebody sign a deal. They have to sign when they are ready." And the reason I put this in here is not to talk about this specific question and this specific quote as a standalone comment, but because it pairs very well with the next question when he's asked about contract talks with Brock. And he said, when he is ready, we will sit down and finish it. It shouldn't be that hard to do. So the previous comment, not asked about Brock, asked about previous free agents or previous new contracts or extensions for their players and why it takes so long. He basically said, it's all the players. I mean, we can't make them sign deals. Whenever they're ready, they sign them, as if they just give great offers in the beginning and it's on the player every time. The 49ers are the only organization that every player that comes up for a contract, it just takes forever. And it's every single time it's on the players. Okay, great. But he then reiterated that when he said, when he, meaning Brock, when he is ready, we will sit down and we will finish it. And it shouldn't be that hard to do. So I took that as we have an offer on the table. When Brock wants to sit down and finish this thing, he'll do that. It is what it is. We'll negotiate on his time. But also, just so you know, if a deal doesn't get done, I'm very optimistic about it. I expect him to be here for a long time. He's the guy that we want. We've managed this whole offseason as if he's going to get a deal. And I told you 6 times that he's the reason that this offseason is going the way that it is. So we're expecting to sign him. But if for some reason a deal doesn't get done, it's on Brock because he wasn't ready to sit down. And this, by the way, is not a hard deal. This very straightforward. We know what it is. He knows what it is. We already said he's top 10 earlier, giving him and his agent all the ammo they need. So good luck, Parag, in negotiations. Very, very clear. We think he's top 10 and elite. We're going to pay him as such. He wants to get a deal done. This should be very simple. But if it doesn't happen, don't blame us. Don't blame the 49ers. Everything we did this offseason was around Brock Purdy and signing Brock Purdy. So we expect to. We're going to try our best. But if it doesn't happen, just so you know, he, much like the other players, weren't ready to sit down and finish it because it should be straightforward. So that's the way I took it. I felt like everything he said came back to Brock Purdy and put all the onus on Brock. Again, I don't know that it was intentional. It also might have been intentional. If it was intentional, why? Why would he do all of that? It's not because they don't like Brock. It's not because they don't want to sign Brock. That's not it. Is it they have had preliminary talks at some point and they've thrown out an offer? They feel like their offer is fair. Him and his agent or his agent, whatever, didn't believe that, and now he's pissed. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'm just saying that regardless whether it was intentional or not, there was a clear message of put the pressure on Brock Purdy for whatever reason. Brother Bob says, LMAO, I'm on the line. Okay, here's $2 for old time's sake. Brother Bob, first of all, if I banned you, you would just create another name and be here the next day. I already know you. You're too stubborn for that. Dave says, here's $2 to say Brother Bob is the man. I just said it. Brother Bob says, Dave, no, you're the man. Your channel is funny. Nice. Corey says, Kyle was refreshingly honest and centered, and Jed was a total BS agent. I completely agree, by the way. I gave my opinion on Kyle Shanahan. I thought he carried himself very well. Jed, I'll give my opinion on him. I thought he came across flippant, agitated, annoyed. He started off with a joke. I don't know which media member he was talking to, but remember this interview was on April 1st, and he said, "Oh, you look great." And the person that he was talking to was, "Oh, thanks. I really appreciate it." And he goes, "April Fools." Like, okay, dude, what are you, 45, 50? Who pulls April Fools jokes? Says, "Oh, April Fools," especially after you gave a compliment and that person clearly felt good about it. And you just ripped out the rug from that's how he started the whole thing. Then he's asked his first question. It was super awkward. Everybody's like, haha, yeah, that was super funny. Thanks for the middle school joke. Ha ha ha. We'll all laugh. And then it was super awkward silence. The first question's asked about the salary cap. He's like, "Oh, I mean, it's more Eddie DeBartolo. Blame my uncle. It's not our fault." But all right, dude, you're whatever. And then he ended it. The tonality of that last question around Brock was super agitated. I didn't think he carried himself well at all. Kyle Shanahan did a fantastic job. Fantastic job. And it was refreshing. He also says, increase my faith in the coach and GM, but we'll always have a clown owner. Yeah, you know what's crazy about that, Corey? And this isn't going to take away from my overall opinion of Jed. I do think that he's done a better job as an owner. I really do. I mean, ultimately, he basically brought in two people that he felt are very smart and can run an organization and has handed them the keys and just kind of stayed out of their way. For the most part, he's opened the pocketbooks or the families opened their pocketbooks and really tried to win championships. So I think he's better than what he used to be. That being said, this interview last year, his interview, if you just watch them side by side, his interview at the owners' meetings last year versus this year, completely different demeanor. Last year, he was relaxed, he was jovial, he was having fun. They were obviously coming off of a Super Bowl. Oddly, I think Kyle seemed way more uptight. This year, he seemed looser, fresh, ready to go, reinvigorated, as he said. He came across like that. And Jed came across pretentious, intense. It was, I don't know, it was very weird. Very stark contrast between the two. But I don't think Jed came off very well at all. Dave says, Brother Bob graces my channel with his presence. All love. I grace your channel with my presence. I don't know that it's gracing, but I'm there. Frank Tom Ocean says, Brother Bob and Dave, CCs of the year, laugh out loud. For sure. They're definitely up there. Dave says, FTO, one of the original GOATs along with Harris. There's a lot of originals in here. Joseph says, Brock ain't even top 32. All right, chill out. Chill out. I do not agree with that message. I definitely think he's a starting caliber quarterback. This is not a Jimmy G situation where, for me, I can separate team success or team failure from the quarterback. I feel like that I've always been able to do that. It's interesting how a big segment of people can't do that. You either win or you don't, or the team wins or doesn't, and it's all the quarterback or not the quarterback. They can't separate good or bad play. It's just simply wins and losses. Except for now, a lot of people who have taken that stance, all of a sudden, when you hang your hat on, well, hey, Josh Allen isn't as good as Brock because he hasn't been to a Super Bowl and he doesn't win like Brock has. And then all of a sudden they play each other and one looked amazing and the other one looked like trash. And one team continues to win and the other one doesn't. Then it's like, oh, now we can separate. We can separate the difference. Winning is not how you evaluate a quarterback. I'm now going to the other side because my Brock Purdy stance was predicated on wins. So now that he's not winning, not his fault, it was the team around him. And I can see clearly that quarterback wins is not a stat, even though that's everything that I talked about up till this point. But I think quarterbacks are good, great, bad, whatever, all on their own. And it's very clear who is what when you watch. Dave says brick rates at 72 in the league, Mac and Mordecai now. All right. He says, who's the QB in the draft? Kyle something I heard today. Kyle McCord. He was brought up earlier in the chat. He's Kirk Cousins. Whatever you think of Kirk Cousins, that's basically Kyle McCord. Now, I don't know that he'll have the career of Kirk or what he'll be like in the NFL, but that would be my comp for him as Kirk Cousins. And I think Kirk Cousins was consistently top 12-ish in the league for his majority of his career. So if you can get that out of Kyle McCord, I think whoever drafts him is going to be very happy. But we'll see. We'll see how his career goes. But that's the comp, is Kirk Cousins. All day, every day, Kim says that this 49ers regime lives in the ignorant section. Well, I would say more arrogant than ignorant. Dave says Kim always tells facts, but Kyle McCord, is he good? I think I just answered the question. Dave says your chat is elite. Brick's game is similar to poop. Jeez. Yeah. All right. Way too hard. Way too hard. All day, every day, Kim says, how many times has Brock beat a top-notch quarterback? Well, I mean, what do you consider top-notch? Is it the big four? Is that your top-notch? Is it Burrow, Lamar, Allen, Mahomes? I mean, if those are the top-notch, those are the only for sure top-notch, I would say. If that's how you're looking at it, then 0-1 versus Lamar, 0-1 versus Allen, 0-3 versus Kansas City, or 0-2 versus Kansas City. Super Bowl, regular, I think he's 0-2 versus Kansas City. So 0-4. 0-4. But again, listen, those are team games. Those are team games. Wins and losses are predicated on the team. But I will say he played 2 of his worst games ever. 3 of his worst games ever in those games by happenstance. Oddly enough, the game that was the biggest and the brightest, he played way better in than he did the other 3 regular season games. But he was awful against the Ravens. 4 interceptions, completely lost any chance at MVP. That's what won it for Lamar. He was awful against Buffalo. People say it's because of the snow, but again, if you're elite, then you got to be able to play in inclement weather a bit. The other quarterback who is elite did just fine. So awful game there, and then awful this regular season against the Chiefs as well. So I would say three of his bottom 5 games ever in the league happened to come in those games. So certainly he was to blame for a big portion of 3 of those 4 losses for sure. The Super Bowl loss was not on Brock at all. He did exactly what he should have been expected to do, which is not lose you the game, not be the reason that you win it. Definitely played better than Jimmy. I never was nervous about him dropping back in that game. He is not the reason they lost the Super Bowl. But those other 3 games, you can make the argument that he was a big reason. And then against the Bengals, he played bad too. He had an awful interception in the red zone. So yeah, not great. In 4 of the 5 games, I said 3 of the 4. 4 of the 5 games, he was not good at all. So there you go. He beat Tom Brady. Yeah, but Tom Brady wasn't elite anymore. That was Tom Brady who was afraid to get hit. So Tom Brady by name is Tom Brady, but that was a very diminished Tom Brady. So, but if you want to say Tom Brady because the name matches, then sure. Who else? Aaron Rodgers have they played? And when did they play? I don't feel like they played. I mean that okay, I'll give you an example. Oh, they did play. They played last year. Same thing. Aaron Rodgers by name is elite, but Aaron Rodgers right now is not an elite quarterback. You see what I'm saying? So saying, "Oh, well, he beat Tom Brady or he beat Aaron Rodgers," like that's a great name on your resume, but the final year of Tom Brady was not the Tom Brady. Last year, Aaron Rodgers was not Aaron frickin' Rodgers. See what I'm saying? So elite names, but not elite quarterbacks. I easily could be leaving somebody off this list. I think that Stafford's elite. What's his record against Stafford? Right? But I was going based off of the comment given, and I think the consensus elite quarterbacks are the 4 that I mentioned. And I think Tom Brady was not a consensus elite quarterback in his final year. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is not either. I don't think Stafford is a consensus elite quarterback. I think he's elite. So I would add in his record against Stafford, which is, I think, pretty decent, actually. It was like 2-2 or something like that. So I would give him credit for those, but the consensus wouldn't agree with that. So all day, every day, Kim says, that's my point, Jay. He wants to get paid like them without being them. Yeah, but here's the thing, all day, every day, Kim. I think both things can be true. I don't think the 49ers should pay Brock that kind of money. I think they're crazy to do so. But to be consistent, I don't think Jordan Love should have gotten that money. I don't think Dak Prescott should have gotten that money. I don't think Trevor Lawrence should have gotten that money. I don't think Jalen Hurts should have gotten that money. I don't think Jared Goff should have gotten that money. Am I missing anybody? Tua. Like, I don't think any of those guys, Dak, none of those guys should have gotten that money. None of them. So I'm being consistent. It's not just Brock. However, the flip side of that is, does he deserve to get paid that money based off of what the league says is the value of a quarterback when they're up for a contract? Yeah, he kind of does. He does. And he certainly deserves to ask for it. So I think that Brock asking for it is not out of the realm of possibility, or he should be reprihanded. I'm literally losing it right now. Like now I'm super tired and the jet lag is really catching up to me. But he shouldn't be grilled essentially for asking for that money. He should ask for that money. He and his agent are doing exactly what they should do based off of what the league has said quarterbacks get paid when it's time to get paid. But also, I don't think the team should pay him. And if you have the stance that I have, then you should also agree that all those other guys fall into the category as well because they're all similar to Brock or were clearly worse than Brock in some cases. So, Michael says, Jesse, what do you think John York is showing up more and more, not happy with how money is being spent, preventing another regrettable contract? I don't know, Michael, that he is showing up more and more. I did hear somebody said that he was at the owners' meetings, I guess. So I did not know that. But I also think it's possible that he's been at the owners' meetings every year and nobody knew about it. He's not going to talk to the media. He's not the out in front of everybody in the media in the public eye, but it might be mandatory that he shows up to the owners meetings because he also is listed as a majority owner with the team. And when you have the owners meetings, you're talking about rule changes and all these other things that owners have to be there for. I think he might have been there every year and nobody recognized it until this year. I think that's a possibility. So I don't know that he's showing up more and more. What I will say is, let's say he hasn't been there in the past. Let's operate under that assumption. Yeah, I mean, every time that John is shown up, it's usually during clear times of distress when it comes to the team when they aren't living up to expectation. It's usually been during the regular season. If that is the case and it's the off season, there's something clear that he's trying to get across to everybody else. But I don't know that that's the case. I do know that he was there. It sounds like nobody's mentioned that in the past at other owners meetings, but also if he's not in the public eye, it's very possible, like I said, that he's at every owners meeting because he has to be technically. I don't know. Tommy Huxley said, what's up, Tommy? I don't know why I said your last name like that. Stafford is elite at pick sixes. All right. Well, according to Tommy, the credit I was going to give Brock, I can no longer give. So, like I said, it's not consensus. All day, every day, Kim says, Love deserves the money over Brock. He led the youngest team in the league to the playoffs. Brock lost all pros and sucked. And that's simple. And it's that simple. I guess. I mean, I've talked about this that when those other quarterbacks got paid, they came off of arguably the best span of their career. Brock is in a different scenario here where he is not coming off of that, which does complicate this maybe a little bit more. I think that's a real situation we can talk about. Love, you're right, at that time was coming off of a burner of a run, beat a Dallas team on the road when they were the underdog in the playoffs and was playing lights out football. So, from that standpoint, if you're looking at what Brock is coming off of, yes. But in a vacuum, if you are saying who's a better player, I said last year going into the season, I thought Brock was better. I think right now, I still believe Brock is better. Love is clearly more talented. That is obvious, but talent doesn't win you games. Talent doesn't necessarily show up at all times. I think Love is a risk taker, an awful decision maker a lot of the time. And he's had quite a few injuries. So, in a vacuum, I would take Brock. I can also understand why somebody would take Love based off of some of the things that he can do that Brock simply cannot from a physical standpoint. And he has played good football for some long stretches. I completely agree there. I would personally at this stage take Brock. I don't know that that'll be a forever thing. We'll see how it plays out again this year, but in this moment, much like last offseason, I would take Brock Purdy. So, but I think your point is a valid one, in which when we're looking at when these players are getting paid, Love deserved it more based off of where Brock is coming off of a not so great season. So Michael says John York did show up during the regular season this year. I think I do remember that as well. And again, he shows up every time during the regular season when the team is not doing well. So yeah, when John shows up, there's a reason why. He's obviously pissed and he's trying to apply pressure. I just don't know that the owners' meetings, if that's the intention, or got a hair in my eye, an eyelash in my eye, or if it's mandatory that he's there and he's just never been recognized in the past. I'm not quite sure. Not quite sure. Either way. Okay. Let's see. Lawrence got paid for a second. That's possible. It is possible. Spidey G says, Jesse, why does every quarterback have an elite offensive line according to Purdy fans? When they compared them to Purdy, like one guy told me Mahomes had an elite O-line when he won the Super Bowl in 2019, when Casey's O-line was ranked 16th. I don't know. I think it fits their narrative. Again, the offensive line thing I think is valid. I do. But to me, all quarterback conversations, and especially when Brock is brought up, I just think there's so much dancing around the topic. People are afraid to be honest. I also think that people are super inconsistent. Super inconsistent. It's funny because I have an opinion on Brock, and I know there's a big chunk of the fan base that disagrees with that opinion, and that's okay. But consistently, people will bring up that I'm inconsistent about other quarterbacks, and that's just simply not true. I'm very consistent about how I talk about quarterbacks. That's on wax. I don't delete videos. I mean, they're there. You can go watch them. But that being said, CJ Stroud is a great example of this. I grilled him this year a lot of the time, and I think he deserved it. I think he was phenomenal as a rookie. I never once called him elite. A lot of people said, "Oh, you called him elite." I've never once said that. I said he was seemingly on his way to being such, but that he had to stack years. Like I said for Brock Purdy, you've got to see it for a few years before you just call somebody elite. Same thing I said about Jaden Daniels, who is coming off of a phenomenal rookie year. Let's see it for a few years before we call him that. Now, if we're ranking quarterbacks in the moment, I would put Jaden above Brock. But that's also not calling Jaden elite or saying that he's always going to be above Brock, much like I just put Brock above Love. And I'm not saying that's a forever thing, but in this moment, that's who I would take. But my point is, when I brought up CJ Stroud, is 49er fans love to grill CJ Stroud for his backstep he took this year, and that is fine. But you can't then say, well, I'm going to make the concession for Brock Purdy that all of his players around him were hurt and that his offensive line sucks, and then not do that for CJ Stroud, because CJ Stroud had the worst offensive line in the NFL. The worst. So not middle of the tier. The 49ers, I think by every offensive line metric, were top 15 in the league. So around average or slightly above average. And by every offensive line metric, the Texans were either worst or second worst across the board, whether that's ESPN, whether that's NFL.com, whether that's PFF. Across the board, that is how it ranked. So you can't say, oh, well, Brock Purdy, he had the worst. I mean, what do you expect him to do? Such a bad offensive line when CJ Stroud's was way worse. Way worse. And CJ Stroud also took less quarterback driven sacks, meaning he, even though he was pressured a ton, could have easily saw ghosts and taken a lot of dumb sacks that were his fault because of it. He didn't. And even though he dropped back way more than Brock Purdy, he still took less quarterback sacks than Brock Purdy from a standpoint of whose fault was it? Quarterback's fault, not the offensive line. Brock Purdy took more sacks than CJ Stroud when it comes to that. And then also we talk about injuries. Great weapons to start the year, but very early on, he lost Diggs to a knee injury and was gone for the year. And then he lost Tank Dell to a serious injury. He missed the year. And then I think he lost Nico Collins for a couple games. So we talk about losing weapons. I mean, CJ Stroud. So the point is, nobody seemingly can be consistent. Not nobody. Most people who are passionate about Brock Purdy being great are very inconsistent. And then they'll blame others for being inconsistent. And the reality is, that's not true. I'm very consistent. I just have a difference of opinion than you, and you disagree with it. All day, every day, Kim says Brock fans also said Hurts sucked. Exactly. Exactly. Again, another inconsistency because when Hurts plays well, it's because of all the weapons around him. And when he doesn't play well, it's because he doesn't have the weapons around him. And when Brock plays well, it's not because of the weapons. He elevates them. And when he doesn't play well, it's because not Brock, but everybody else around him is buns. Once again, very inconsistent. Very inconsistent. And I'm not even a Hurts guy. I don't like the way that Hurts plays. If I was choosing a quarterback, I wouldn't pick Jalen Hurts over Brock Purdy because I want specific things done. But in this moment, if you're just ranking quarterbacks, you would have to put Hurts above Brock because what has Brock done better than Hurts from a statistical standpoint or a winning standpoint? Now, I don't like the way that he plays. I personally would take Brock in a vacuum, but the inconsistency is massive when people talk about these quarterbacks. It's absolutely freaking wild. And it happened all playoffs. This quarterback sucks now because look at he lost in the playoffs. Hello. Brock wasn't even in the playoffs. What are we talking about? It's crazy. Just so crazy. I have zero issue if your opinion differs than mine, but just be intelligent about your conversation. Be consistent, be intelligent. Disagreement is totally fine. It's expected. I know I know that I'm in the minority with my opinion on Brock. I'm totally okay with that. And whether you agree or disagree with me, one thing you cannot say is that I don't give reasons as to why I feel the way that I feel. And that I haven't been consistent if you listen to me time in and time out, or that I don't give clear and concise reasons as to why I feel the way that I feel. So, doesn't mean you have to agree with me. Does not mean you have to agree with me, by the way. Let's see. Jesse, if you're a straight shooter, how do you feel about Jewish power and why the Niners need it? I don't even know what that means. And I am a straight shooter. If I'm educated on a topic, I'm not going to just comment on something that I'm not educated on, and I definitely don't understand this question. So maybe rephrase it. Let's see. Hurts is okay, a good athlete, but an average quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. He's an average passer. Is that fair? Like a quarterback is more than just passing. He's an elite. He's elite with his legs. He's below average as a passer, but when you combine those, that makes good. That makes sense. Lotha, what's up, Lotha? I feel like it's been a while. Says Hurts blew up because they got Saquon. True. Hurts won a Super Bowl because of Saquon, but Hurts also went to the Super Bowl and played really, really good 2 years ago. Really, really good. Really good. But to be fair, and that is okay, that's a very okay thing to say. I don't disagree with it, but Brock, up until this year, had not played without Christian McCaffrey. An elite Christian McCaffrey, by the way. Christian McCaffrey was doing what Saquon did this year, a little bit different in how he did it, but essentially was the offensive player of the year, much like Saquon. And Brock Purdy has only played in his career with that. And the 1 year he didn't have that, didn't look so good. So if we're going to be consistent, that's a completely reasonable take to have. Also should probably have that about Brock Purdy. Joe says Hurts is cold and so is Brock. All players have their weaknesses. Fair, again, consistent. I think whatever your overall consensus is on those guys as quarterbacks, you probably should have them ranked pretty close to each other. You can have I think the right ranking is to have Hurts at this moment above Brock. If you would ask me this last offseason, I had Brock above Hurts. In this moment, I think the right ranking is to have Hurts above Brock. However, it is very close. It is very, very close. And if you feel one way about Hurts, you should feel that way about Brock and vice versa, ultimately, as far as where they rank. Steve-O says, to be a creator, you have to have internet voice of the guy on Twitter. I feel like I do. I feel like I do have the internet voice of the guy on Twitter. And when I talk about those people, I always have a voice. I can't do it now. I don't even know what it sounds like, but certainly when I break down average dummy on Twitter, I definitely have a voice for them. That is funny. Harris says Hurts has constantly outplayed Mahomes each time that he's faced him. That is true. That is true. But again, it's a team game. A lot goes into that. Spidey G says, I always say this, swap Purdy and Mahomes in Super Bowl 58 and have Mahomes on San Francisco and Purdy on Kansas City. The game would be 40-10. San Francisco wins. Purdy is an elite like Mahomes. He's average. Okay, I 40-10, I'm not willing to go that far. Certainly, the 49ers would have won and the Chiefs would have lost. That I agree with. However, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. Nobody's the best quarterback in the NFL except for Patrick Mahomes. I think Josh Allen is very, very close. I think Lamar is very close and Burrow is very close. I mean, we have a couple down years from Mahomes, a couple years like he had this last year, and then you add in another MVP caliber season from those other guys and a Super Bowl win. And I think a lot of people might say that he's been surpassed. I think those guys are close. There's potential that they could eventually take over as the best quarterback in the league in the near future, depending on how things play out. But Patrick Mahomes is right now in this moment the best quarterback. Saying that Brock Purdy is not Patrick Mahomes is not an indictment on Brock Purdy. Just like it's not an indictment on any other quarterback who is also not Patrick Mahomes, who is the best in the world. So how many other quarterbacks can say that? I don't know what that's in reference to. It's Daniels above Purdy, Commanders quarterback. Yeah, no, right now in this moment, Daniels is better than Purdy. But again, when you get outside of the guys who have proven to be elite, the 4 or 5 guys that you have in that elite status quarterback, once you get outside of that, the back half of the top 10 is very interchangeable year to year and sometimes week to week. It really is. Last year, if you took your ranking of quarterbacks last year at this time, the back end of your top 10 would probably look drastically different than it does right now at this time. So the elite are the elite. And then there are guys who are top 10, but their moment is very short lived in a lot of cases. Those that are consistently around top 10, Kirk Cousins, not anymore, he's not, but his career, he was consistently around top 10. Jared Goff is starting to do that a little bit. Those guys are your very good quarterbacks. The ones who I still wouldn't pay because they're not elite. I wouldn't give that elite money to. But I can understand why a team would pay them because you basically know year in and year out. Like at worst, you're getting the 12th best quarterback, and at their best, you're getting, let's say, the 7th best quarterback, depending on the year. Brock Purdy right now has not earned that. Now we will see if next year he puts up top 10 quarterback play or top 12 quarterback play, and he does it for another year after that. It's like, well, I mean, you don't have an elite guy, but you've now got a guy who's putting together a hell of a career. I mean, say what you want about Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff. And in a time shot, you may say, hey, this quarterback is better or that, but they're consistently around that top 10, top 12 mark. Very consistently. I mean, you're putting together a pretty good resume for a career. And Brock Purdy might be that guy. Like he very well might be that guy. We have to see it for a few more seasons, but yeah, dude, if he has, let's say he's 6 years into his career and 3 of those years he was top 10, 2 of those years he was like top 14, and then he had this year where he was like, I don't know, let's say the 17th best quarterback or whatever. Dude, what's there to argue? Like, yeah, sure, he's not elite, but you can win with that if you have a great structure around him. Like, that's not a bad thing at all. Poppy says Brady Cook over Purdy. I'm never gonna say a guy who's never thrown an NFL pass is better than any player. I don't care. Give me who's the worst quarterback in the league. Who's the worst whoever you think is the worst quarterback in the league. There is no quarterback in college who has not thrown an NFL pass that I'm going to rank above any of those guys until I see it. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't take those guys. I certainly would take a Cam Ward over a lot of starting quarterbacks just because I know those starting quarterbacks aren't doing it for me. But I don't know that Cam Ward's better than any NFL starting quarterback at this point or any NFL quarterback. He's never made an NFL throw. I don't know. Funny remark, though. Rome the Upsetter says, to be fair, Hurts beat Mahomes, Lamar, and Allen. No, listen. But again, his team beat their teams. But also, when you talk about Hurts, he has played well in those games. It's not as if Hurts was awful in those games and the team found a way to win because the team is great. The team is great. I don't think Hurts is elite. But Hurts certainly, much like if you look at Brock Purdy, I said earlier in this stream, Brock Purdy is not the reason they lost the Super Bowl. Hurts certainly, if they had lost those games the way that he played in those games, would not have been the reason whatsoever. And in fact, you can say he was he was a big driver as to why his team won in those particular instances. So, yeah, I mean, I think I will say this about Hurts. One thing he's proven is he's a big game quarterback. He plays well in big games. He plays seemingly at his best in pressure situations against other elite signal callers. That you can say. Emiliano says Saquon didn't do much in the Super Bowl. Hurts had to do heavy lifting in that 24 Super Bowl, just like the 22 Super Bowl. That I also agree with. I think when we talk about the 49ers Super Bowl versus the Chiefs, most of us say, hey, CMC didn't do what he was expected to do in that game. But CMC played better, a lot better than Saquon did, because he also had like 80 something receiving yards or something like that. Saquon did almost nothing in that game. Now, at the same time, statistically, he did nothing, but he certainly did help. I mean, the presence of Saquon, much like the presence of CMC, that is what was game planned for by the Kansas City defense. So it took pressure off of both quarterbacks to play more free. But overall, yeah, I mean, listen, Hurts played well. T-Dub says A.J. Brown was reading self-help books, begging the media to give him attention because of his relationship with Hurts and Hurts' play. Saquon went on a generational run. Yeah, I get that, but A.J. Brown is also a malcontent. I mean, listen, everybody that talks about Jalen Hurts talks about him as an elite leader. He's kind of made fun of because his demeanor is always even keel. He hardly ever celebrates. I don't know if you watched that Super Bowl, but Jalen Hurts played better than AJ Brown. I mean, AJ Brown had an awful drop at one point where he was hit in stride for a big play, just completely dropped the ball. So Hurts played better than AJ Brown did. So he can read all the self-help books that he wants or whatever. I think that's says more about him than it does Jalen Hurts personally. And I think AJ Brown's a top 5 receiver in the league. Elena says, how was your trip, Jesse? Fantastic. For those of you that weren't here early, I did talk about going to Bora Bora. If you're the type of person that likes beautiful scenery on a vacation and relaxation, then Bora Bora is top notch. Absolutely top notch. It's very expensive, but it is top notch. It is the best of the best when it comes to that type of vacation. And I've been to a lot of places. I've been to Cabo, Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Hawaii, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, and Bora Bora is hands down, not even close, more beautiful than all those places. So if you're looking for a beautiful vacation to go on, then Bora Bora is that vacation. Harris says the 2024 Eagles were the 2023 Niners, only with a real O-line and sealed the end. Yeah, I think very similar, actually. Very similar. I would also argue that the 2023 Chiefs were better than the 2024 Chiefs were better than the 2023 Chiefs. So I think that was a better team that they beat. Thomas says, Spidey G's, nobody is like Mahomes, Allen Jackson are all talented, but are losers. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I guess being an MVP quarterback makes you a loser. Being a perennial playoff contender is a loser. I guess. That's not how I would describe those guys. But yes, Mahomes is the best. JD Durham says Kyle will lose another Super Bowl and not win it. Kyle will be fortunate to make another Super Bowl. That is not easy to do. Tavares says you have to put Hurts above Purdy this year. Yeah, of course. Tim B says, Jesse, what were Grant and Ashley doing at the Breakers? What is the Breakers? I don't know what the Breakers is. Odd for show says, stop the stupidity guy, Jesse. Stupidity guy, Jesse, give his honest opinion. I don't know what that's in reference to. I'm sorry. Are you talking about me or somebody else? Joe says, don't forget protection. Yeah, protection is super important in a multitude of different fashions, but especially when you're talking quarterback. Mindspringer says, Jesse, you're a mensch. Is that good? What is a mensch? I've heard of that, but like off the top of my head, I can't. What does being a mensch mean? Is that good? Is that bad? I have a feeling that that's bad. Let's look up mensch real quick. Mensch meaning. Oh, it's Yiddish for being a good person. Honor and integrity. Thank you. I appreciate that. I agree. I'm a mensch. That is a really nice thing to say. I'm not even joking. Thank you for saying that. Like I said, I've heard of it before, but I didn't know exactly what it meant. That is one of the best compliments that I think for me that you can give, because I do pride myself on being a person of integrity. And my personal life, that is very, very important to me. Ask Coach, he'll tell you. He spent some time around me. I am very much that person that is, whatever I say I'm going to do. If I say I'm going to do something, or I say I'm going to be somewhere at a certain time, I get very frustrated with people that don't live up to that expectation. Um, so I appreciate that. All Day Everyday Kim says, the only way I'm picking Brock over Hurts is if I want a late game pick. All right, chill out. All Day Everyday Kim says, I thought a franchise's job is to find that elite. I agree. It is a franchise's job, but the NFL is doing different things at this point. So there we go. Jesse, what happened to the 49ers collective? Just curious. Nothing bad happened to it. So for those of you that don't know, we were doing a show called 49ers Collective. It was myself, Grant, Ashley, and Chase Senior. I love that show. I don't ever do shows with Ashley or Chase, but I enjoyed like that, four of us. But that was a channel that was ran by one of our mine and Grant's like manager, who gets us like promotion deals and stuff like that. Isn't Borna is his name. So Borna, shout out to Borna, by the way, much love. But anyways, Borna had started that channel, and he had gotten a sponsorship for the channel, and it required that we go twice a week. And the four of us are super busy in our own content creation for this literally the same exact reason that Grant and I don't stream. Has nothing to do with not loving to stream together. I mean, I still talk to Grant very regularly, but more so that it does become a point where you have to be a little bit selfish. And it sounds messed up, but listen, I don't do this full time. This is a part-time thing that I have a passion for, but I can't do 12 shows a week and only have 3 of those be on my platform. I can't do it. Like I have to be selfish when it comes to that. Grant does this full time. Chase does this full time. Ashley, I think, does this part time. So for different reasons, you have to be selfish at certain points. And it's really hard for anybody to put 2 shows a week on a platform that's not theirs when you're not reaping all the benefits. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. So, again, back to the mensch comment. I'm very transparent on this stuff. I don't know if anybody else would be comfortable with what I just said, but that's the reality of the situation. It had nothing to do with us not liking to stream together or anything like that. That's just what happened. So don't mention it. Nice. Now, see, I do get puns. I love a good pun. God loves you all. That is a fact. Why are we talking about John Morant and his finger pistols? Joe says Chase always looks tired. Um, yeah, he's got the Chase has definitely got the Tracy McGrady look, right? Like, remember Tracy McGrady just always like, oh, I look so tired, dude. Hey, Chase is a hustler though. I like Chase. I know that like people feel a type of way about him because he covers the 49ers and he also covers the Eagles. What I don't care what team he roots for. You don't have to be a 49er fan or a fan of any team to cover them. He thoroughly enjoys doing what he does, and he does a phenomenal job. And he is super energetic, and Chase is great. Chase does a great job. But yes, he definitely has the Tracy McGrady look. Uh, I heard Jesse is starting NIL deals for Pop Warner. I do coach my son's football team. I no NIL deals, not yet, not yet. Spidey G says, "Do you think Kyle Shanahan's 49ers will be remembered like Andy Reid's Eagles 10 to 15 years from now?" Yeah, I think if they don't win a Super Bowl for sure. I mean, we know how the Harbaugh era 49ers team is remembered. Like a lot of us look on that era very fondly, but ultimately they were given a golf clap at a random halftime of a game last year or whatever, 2 years ago. That's what's going to happen to this regime of the 49ers. Now, Kyle Shanahan ultimately might be able to win a Super Bowl, so he might get his spot with the 49ers history, but the team that just got broken up, the Eric Armsteads, the Debo Samuels, uh, Joe Staley, unfortunately, was a part of that. I doubt, that CMC is going to be around long and Trent Williams. They're probably not going to win Super Bowls. So, yeah, that team is going to be remembered with a halftime golf clap at some point. Not that great. I don't know. I don't think you were taking a shot. I think Chase is a pretty easygoing guy. I don't think he would look at that as a shot either. I remember Thomas Mott. Oddly enough, Thomas Mott also he has his own Eagles channel now. Has his own Eagles channel. But Thomas covered the 49ers and the Eagles for Chat Sports. And then Chase took it over. And I think both of them are actual Eagles fan. I know Thomas is. I don't know that Chase is, but I feel like he is. Um, but I think Thomas and Chase do a great job, or Thomas used to do a great job covering the 49ers. I just think they're both made for this. They both do a fantastic. Go watch Thomas's channel. If you go watch Thomas's channel, he's got a hell of an editor over there. First of all, I assume it's not him doing it because editing videos like that, when I used to do it on my second channel, takes like 6 to 8 hours to do. It's absolutely insane. I don't know that he's doing the editing, but whoever is, whether it's him or somebody else, awesome job. Very professional look that he has. Very well spoken. He's an easy listen. I think Thomas does a great job too. Mitchell says losing for a couple of years is a good thing to shake the bandwagoners. Yeah, I mean the problem is, Mitchell, is that you're never going to shake them because you don't know when they do win again. You don't know who is and who isn't. You know what I mean? Marvin Studio says the Trey Lance draft trade up ruined the chances of winning the Super Bowl. Could have drafted a better offensive lineman or receiver. Could have kept Jimmy for a few years more. Sure. I definitely think that it impacted this team today significantly. And over the last couple of years, I don't know if a Jimmy G led team was like one player away from winning a Super Bowl. I just don't think Jimmy's that good ultimately. So I don't know that they would have won a Super Bowl. But um, as far as where the 49ers are at now, that Lance draft is a big reason why. Who's a player that you wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers drafted? I mean, I think this is a pretty obvious question. Um, I mean, any defensive tackle that seems worth their weight in salt is likely to be drafted by the 49ers if they're available. I will say this. A lot of people say Cam Scattaboo. Oh, he might be a Kyle guy. I don't necessarily believe that to be true. I look at the Ohio State running backs. I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys ends up as a 49er. I I will give you a position. The 49ers have 4 picks in the top 100. Don't be shocked if one of those players is running back. Last year, I said the 49ers would take a receiver in the first 2 rounds. By the way, was still shocked that they took Ricky Pearsall at pick 31 or whatever. I was still surprised by that, but I wasn't surprised at them taking receiver high. I think that position this year might be running back. I could see them going running back in the top 100. And I think everybody thinks they're going to take a running back. I think that's clear at this point. But I think a lot of people would be upset if in the first 4 picks they have in this draft, knowing how much the defensive line needs to be revamped, knowing how much we all think the offensive line could use a boost and an improvement, I wouldn't be shocked if a running back is a first 4 pick this year. So we'll see. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, that was the other thing though too, is that we can talk about on-field stuff all we want when it comes to Brock and Jimmy. But, like, that is the biggest difference between the 2 is, to me, it's clear that Brock Purdy loves everything that it takes to be a quarterback in the NFL. Jimmy G loved being a quarterback in the NFL, but he doesn't love everything that comes with being a quarterback. See, here's the way that I see it. For those of you that work regular jobs like I do, aren't NFL players, you'll get this. There's a certain point where you move up in a company where the expectation may be the same that you're an 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 employee Monday through Friday, but you also know that if your phone rings and it's a work number calling after a certain hour or on the weekend, that you're expected to take that call. You feel me? Jimmy Garoppolo being the quarterback or any quarterback in the NFL, yes, technically you are a player in the NFL. You have the same expectations as every other player, technically. But the unwritten rule is you are the quarterback. You are expected to do things like, I don't know, study in the offseason. I don't know, talk to your head coach in the offseason. I don't know, get your weapons together and throw in the offseason. That is kind of the expectation, especially when you get paid big time money like Jimmy G did. Brock Purdy loves those things. There is zero question. Like if you said, "Hey, Brock Purdy in 2 years is going to be out of the league." Why do you think that is? The answer I wouldn't give is because he stopped trying too hard. He didn't put in the effort to be great. I have zero concern about Brock Purdy when it comes to his dedication to the quarterback position and being the best player, whatever that ceiling is, whether that's the best quarterback in the league or the 50th best quarterback in the league. He will reach his full potential because he puts in the work. Jimmy Garoppolo did not, and that is why he struggled in reading the defense or whatever it is that you want to say. So Grant is better than most 49ers writers. When I mean most, I'm talking about the biased ones who praise everything the Niners do because opposing fans respect Grant and his takes more. Um, yeah, I mean, talk about somebody who's not afraid to say what's on their mind. Again, like him, love him, hate him, whatever. Grant is never afraid to say what's on his mind. So, and he is very much like that in person. If you say something to Grant and he doesn't like it, like he will tell you, "Hey, not cool." He's not one of those people that's like, "Oh, I'm gonna sit on my hands and not tell you how I feel." Like he very much will tell you how he feels, and I respect that. I respect that. I think that is missing in the world as a whole, and I think it's certainly missing in 49ers journalism, content creation, all of the above. So, let's see. Grant was at the Breakers with Ashley A. What do you make of that? You asked, did you ask me that question? What is the Breakers? Like, what is the Breakers? I don't even know what that means. I think you asked me that earlier and I asked you to clarify. I don't know what that means. Um, Dave Sims. Oh, hey, what's up, Dave? I don't know. It's exactly the name here. Oh, okay. So you're talking about your channel? Yeah, yeah. Go subscribe to him for sure. Is Grant really a fan? No, he's really not a fan. Oh, Breakers was the hotel they were at. Um, okay. They're colleagues. They make content. We work together on a show together. Did they stay together? Like I don't know. I'm not Grant's keeper, but I would say it's not that weird that they were at the same hotel together. It's like if I see Brad in person, I talk to Brad. I You know what I mean? Like I don't know. If I was going to training camp and a fellow content creator was also going and they were like, "Hey, you want to stay at the same hotel and grab lunch and do it?" Sure. Let's do it. So, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. Um what's your beef with Damon? Um I don't know Damon. My beef with Damon, um, it's not even a beef. It's just I don't like how he came into this world. I think he came in super disrespectful. He came in super arrogant, like he was owed whatever because he was on the radio. I didn't even know who he was when he first came in. Um, he had no problem separating himself and saying, like, oh, content creators are X, Y, and Z. And it's like, listen, bud, you're on YouTube. You're now a content creator. I don't give a damn what you were before this. All I know is right now, you're a content creator. And right now, you're coming in and talking a lot of trash about people you've never interacted with, myself included. And your content is based off of talking trash about other people. And I don't respect that. I don't respect anybody who has not met somebody, talks down on somebody, especially when a lot of people pave the way for what he is doing, either directly or indirectly. A lot of people I don't do this full time, so whatever. But there are people that do this full time and they rely on this. And he was out there saying, don't watch these people. Literally messing with people's money that he doesn't know in a lot of cases. The moment you, as a content creator, say, don't watch that person, I think it's Bush League. I don't like or I don't agree with a lot of opinions that other people have. David Lombardi is a great example of that. I would never, ever tell anybody, don't watch David Lombardi. David's a fraud. David sucks at what he does. Never. Because I think it's super Bush League. I know that David does this full time. I know that regardless of whether I agree with him or disagree with him, I know that he works hard. I know that he's very, very smart. I've met David once in person. He came up to me and shook my hand and introduced himself. He said he liked my work. That's all I know of David. I will say that I think David comes across as a very pretentious prick, but I would never, ever once tell anybody, don't watch that guy take money out of his pocket. That's exactly what Damon did. And I think it's Bush League. And quite frankly, that's the type of person. I'm not even going to say it, but just know that's the person that in real life we would have a conversation. All right. So that's my beef with Damon. Since then, I would say I haven't heard of Damon. I don't watch Damon. I don't give a damn about Damon. I don't like him. That being said, if Damon ever DM'd me and was like, listen, man, hey, I think we got off on the wrong foot. I apologize for what I did. I would accept his apology. That's not the type of person that I think Damon is. I think Damon probably still feels very much the same way that he does. I also know that Damon's kind of a real life piece of crap from things he's done in the past that are out there for anybody to see. So I don't rock with that because there is nothing in content creation worth selling my soul over to work with somebody that I think in real life is a turd. So there's that too. So there you go. That being said, watch Damon. If he's your cup of tea, subscribe to Damon, support Damon. And I also know that Damon, being a full-time content creator, is probably working very hard and is trying to feed his family. So continue to support him if he is your cup of tea, for sure. Let's see. I love and hate Grant's takes, but I respect him for what he does. Plus, he's entertaining. Dude, entertainment value. I listen, Grant's just meant for this. Grant is absolutely meant for this. 49ers or whatever. Grant would be super entertaining at whatever he does. Niners content creators are so much better than what they were 5 to 6. Yeah, I think the landscape has changed. Completely changed. In 10 years, I don't know that ESPN, outside of playing live games, if they even do that, will be around on TV. They'll probably have a YouTube presence. They'll probably have a podcast presence, but like this is the way. So listen, I know I'm not a lot of people's cup of tea. A lot of people don't like what I do. That's fine. There's somebody out there for everybody, literally everybody. And also support everybody that you can. Support everybody. Because again, at the end of the day, I know that everybody is working hard. Some people do it part-time, some people do it full-time. Um, but nobody is like not trying to work hard. You know what I mean? Uh, yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Listen, you said before I took off. Oh, it took off. I thought you were like deployed or something. No, and that's see, that's my point. That's another thing is like obviously I'm friends with Grant. And Damon and Grant have their thing, but Damon like craps on Grant or used to anyways. And what he doesn't realize is like Larry Larry owes a lot of his success to Grant on YouTube. Grant really not just doing shows with him. Like Grant went out of his way to help Larry when Larry needed it most. And guess who probably helped Damon? Larry. So indirectly, Grant helped Damon a lot, but he has no problem talking poorly about Grant. Like that to me, that's weird. Just know your audience, bro. Like know that whether you like him or not, he's a big reason why you are having success on YouTube, dummy. Like it's very simple. So, and again, I don't bring him up or anybody up. I was asked a question. I answered the question. Also, again, subscribe and like his content if he's your cup of tea. For sure. Support him if he's your guy. Um, Grant's the Patrick Mahomes of content creators. Larry is Josh Allen. You're Jalen Hurts. Hey, I'll take it. Listen. When the moment rises, I said Jalen Hurts plays his best. All right. So when the moment needs me, I will be at my best, guys. All right. I'll take it. I'll take Jalen Hurts. Yeah, and that's see super cool of Larry, right? Because that's the right thing to do. Super cool of Larry to do. So, like that would be like I don't know, whatever. I'm done talking about that, dude. It's just it's weird to me. It's a weird thing to do. Um yeah, for sure, right? Like that's the thing is that like I get it. John I think I saw John Lunn's on YouTube now. Dude, listen, old school guy, right? Like old school as far as like came from radio whatever. John Lunn's coming to this game. I haven't heard him say anything disrespectful or talking down on anybody who makes content for the 49ers. I used to listen to John Lunn when he was in Portland, Oregon. Like I grew up on AM radio and sports radio. John Lunn and Colin Cowherd were on AM radio, sports radio when I was younger. I used to call into their shows and get takes off when I was young. So I know John Lunn. I know that he left. He went to the Bay Area. Obviously, I didn't listen to him when he was there. But he's recently like got laid off or whatever. He's come in, been nothing but respectful. Like he hasn't said I don't I mean he can say whatever he wants behind closed doors. I don't know. I don't know him from anybody. What I do know is John Lunn has come in and been at least outwardly respectful, is being helped by Larry also, which I'm sure he appreciates, doesn't talk bad about anybody, and just puts out his content. And I haven't watched his YouTube content, but I'm sure it's probably awesome because he was awesome on the radio. I love John Lunn. Right? Like I don't have an issue with legacy media guys coming over. What dude, whatever you gotta do. Like I get it. Just don't come in and be an a-hole for no reason. Ever. It doesn't make sense to me. And I'll never respect that. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I get it. I get it. I mean, listen, I think there's multiple different ways to skin a cat. You certainly can go that route. Skip Bayless obviously is super personal with like LeBron James. It's super weird. Um, but then there's like the Jim Rome route, which I get it. He had his Chris Everett moment. That was not the best. But Jim Rome is like, dude, he was popular because he was an entertainer. He had the clones. Jim Rome at his peak was like the best, the best radio personality. A lot of people didn't like him, I'm sure, but I love Jim Rome, and he was like the king of it. Dan Patrick, king. He's been a king in this industry, man. Crushed it. Dan Patrick's one of the goats, right? But also, both of them are on YouTube. Both of them are getting paid in very different ways than what they used to. And I bet you both of them are super respectful to even the lowest of the low because there's no reason to not be respectful. Yeah, dude, Rome was great. Rome, I stopped listening to him years and years and years ago. But dude, his SmackDowns once a year, like hell yeah. It does. I will also say though, it depends. Like it depends on what your lane is, right? I think I think that statement is overall true. I also think when it comes to sports teams and their fan bases, I think making a channel around a specific sports team and being positive about that sports team sells more than being negative about that sports team. I just do. I think fans, for the most part, use sports as a getaway. And when they tune in to something about their favorite team or their favorite players, they don't want to hear negative things. They don't. So I think in this industry, if you're covering a team specifically, one team specifically, positivity sells more than negativity. Now, if you're just covering sports, like the genre of sports, I think negativity outsells positivity, right? Because it's like you've got a one hitter quitter about this team, and then the next day you've got a one hitter quitter about this player, and then the next day you've got a one hitter quitter about this sports team and this, you know what I mean? So negativity in that space sells more. But when you're covering one individual team, like I do the 49ers, if I was overly positive about the 49ers, that would sell more than being negative about the 49ers. Right. And so when people say, oh, you're a hot take artist. You just are doing it for the clicks and the views. Like, no, the F I'm not. If I was doing it for the views and clicks, I would actually be positive about the 49ers because that's what you actually want to hear. The reason you hate me and are personal with me, even though we've never met, and hide behind a profile pic that's not you and run your mouth is because I'm negative about the 49ers. If I was positive about the 49ers, you would love me and you would like my channel. Simple. Also true. Uh, issue I have with Larry is yesterday he live streamed with Grant, and Grant brought up T Law's agent. Then a few hours later, on another stream, Jesse said people that bring up T Law's agent aren't or are crazy. I said that. I don't think that's what you meant because I didn't stream yesterday. So, and I don't think I've talked about his agent. Oh, you meant Larry. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't listen. I'm not trying to get like in everybody's business or whatever. I think if that is the case, that's a little weird, but Whatever. Uh, they only get at you over pretty. No, that's not true. That's not true. That's most of it, but that's not true. Larry's lazy. Larry will tell you he's lazy. Larry's not at all lazy. Larry's a grinder. Larry grinds content like him and Grant for full time guys. They grind, bro. Grind. And what I respect about Larry and his content is like Larry literally could take the most unimportant information and make it sound so important for 2 hours. That's a gift. That is that is literally not a shot. That is his radio chops in YouTube, right? Like Larry is fantastic about just he's got a gift, man. He can just talk and talk and talk about God knows what forever. And like be entertaining about it. Like legit entertaining about it. Like Larry's entertaining. Like Larry is entertainment for sure. So um that's his gift. But yes, definitely an inside joke. Um I don't think I get the joke. Sounds like it was a radio thing, but Larry realistically is the very opposite of lazy. Yeah. No, he's definitely not. But he says it. He said like it is an inside joke. Like he'll even say he's lazy or whatever. So I don't know what that is referring to, but he's he's good. Um I appreciate it. I think that's most people on the channel. I mean, a lot of people say that, like for example, I think most people who don't actually listen to me will say, "Oh, you're only negative," and da, da, da. It's like I say a lot of positive things. I just if I feel a certain way about somebody or something, like I'm just gonna tell you that's how I feel. Um, but I think this off season as a whole is a great example of that. I've been mostly positive about what they're doing. Every stream I bring up over and over, I've brought up all off season. I like that they're retooling this thing. That is the right move. Going for it one more year and hanging on to these bad contracts and would have been the wrong decision. I love what they are doing overall. That I'm not happy with everything they've done. I think some of it's a little weird, but overall, if I have to give my opinion on what they're doing, overly positive. But there are some things that I'm negative on when it comes to the 49ers. But if you don't listen to me on the regular basis, like you're not going to know those things. You're just going to assume I'm negative because I was negative when you listened and you turned it off, and now I'm the negative guy, or I'm a Grant Cohn wannabe, or what whatever people want to hurl out. Uh, who's fighting? The chat? Yeah, Larry's a marathon streamer. I'm doing a marathon stream right now. It's 2 a.m. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what? Actually, it's because I'm still on Bora Bora time zone. In Bora Bora right now, 2 a.m. It would be 8 p.m. in Bora Bora. It would be 8 p.m. Let's see. Oh, is that what it came from? That makes sense. That's funny. You're lazy, Larry. And he just ran with it. See, that's the right thing to do, right? He just turned a negative. I assume that was supposed to be a negative comment, and he turns it into a positive. Yeah, I don't listen. I don't get it either. I'm like having a friend to friend chat with you guys. Just I do it on camera. You guys happen to be on the other side, but if you guys ask questions and I see them, like I'm gonna answer them for the most part. If I know what's going on, I was asked a pretty direct question about certain people, and I gave a very honest answer. But as far as like beefing with other people, like I don't, dude, I don't. Whatever. Other people can say whatever they want and do whatever they want. Again, support them, subscribe to them. Do if they're your cup of tea, dude, great. That's awesome. Like always show support for them. They work hard. They all work hard. Um, but I don't build streams based off of what other people say or don't say. I don't have time for all that garbage. Mayoko's awesome too, by the way. I think he's on YouTube now as well. He's a true pro. Tim B says, Jesse, the first time I saw you was with Grant and you were rebuilding your channel. What happened? Thank you. I appreciate it for you following me over. That was like forever ago now, but that's why if you ever see my call-in shows, I don't bring on anybody. Like I don't show their face. So what happened was somebody flashed a pornographic photo and then reported the channel, and I lost it. Even though I deleted it, like I ended the stream, I deleted it. At that point, it was too late, and YouTube was like, clear violation. They never got back to me, and so I just had to restart. So that's what happened, and that's why I don't do call-in shows where people come on camera. Uh, oh, it's all good, bro. There's no reason to apologize. It wasn't you. But no, yeah, it definitely sucked for sure. Definitely sucked. And at that time, it was like a big deal. I was, I'd only been doing it for like 8 months, but I had like 3,000 subscribers and it got monetization. And so it definitely sucked, but whatever. Honestly, it ended up being the best thing ever. Like, when bad things happen, I think a lot of times, like in life, or at least for me, it's this way. And I'm sure a lot of you are the same, where in the moment, you like question it, you don't understand it, you're frustrated with it, um, upset with it, pissed at it, whatever that bad thing is that happens. But like, I genuinely believe everything happens for a reason. You may not know the reason when it happens, and the worst thing could happen. Literally, the worst thing could happen. Uh, Somebody you're close to passes away, and you don't understand it in the moment. But as you proceed through life, there's you almost always, if you are diligent and positive, there's almost always a moment in life where you have something happen and you go, "Oh, okay. That happened because that horrible thing happened to me. Now I get it." It doesn't make that horrible thing like better or whatever else, but you have an understanding for it. Usually, like when bad things happen, you're questioning it, you don't understand it, but ultimately life plays out, and the negative thing that happened, whether you agree with it or not, there is always a reason for it. Always a reason for it. And most of the time, you can turn that negative into a positive if you just write it out long enough. For sure. For sure. All right, y'all. Listen, 2.5 hours. I expected to do 40 minutes. I got to get some shut eye. It's now 2 in the morning. So I got to figure out how to get back on this East Coast time zone and quick, because I got to get back to work. So this is not helping, but I really, really, really love this stuff. Like, it's to a point now, and I genuinely have to thank all of you for this. You're the reason that this is happening. It's to a point now where I could have one topic that is a 10-minute topic. And I know that if I need an hour of content, you guys will provide it by just having a conversation. And I genuinely appreciate it. I think I put maybe an hour's worth of content tonight. You guys gave me an hour and a half of your time. And I truly look at it as like, you guys are my friends. I just don't get to see you on the other side. You support me, you push back, you disagree with me. But at the end of the day, like you are always here to support, you're contributing. And I think that's awesome. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. I genuinely appreciate it. And it doesn't go unnoticed because I know that I could go live at any time, regardless of anything's happening or not, and know that you guys are going to be there and we're going to have good conversation. So I appreciate you for that. Much love. You guys all have an awesome night. Stay blessed. And I will be back very, very soon. Peace.